All right, boils and ghouls. So, yeah, this isn't Jew on the Grudge 2, but everyone should know at this point. Any time I say whatever the next review is, it's never that. It's never going to be that video. So, unless you were very excited for Jew on the Grudge 2, then I was in this mood. So, Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas from 1990. I'm a huge fan of movies about the mob and the mafia and organized crime. Any medium, but like with The Sopranos, it's one of the greatest shows of all time, in my opinion. And this, I would say, is probably the best movie ever made about the mafia. Like, even more so than The Godfather for me. I mean, The Godfather, Godfather 2 are absolute classics. But I really think Goodfellas is just the apex of organized crime films. We have Robert De Niro in here as Jimmy Conway, which I love that his last name is Conway because my mother's maiden name was Conway. And we have Joe Pesci, who won the Academy Award for this film for Best Supporting Actor, which he absolutely deserves it. He is so fantastic in this role, in everything that he does. But as Tommy in this, and how psychopathic he is, and how insane he is, he absolutely kills it in this. And we have Lorraine Bracco, who would later on go do The Sopranos. The cast of this is absolutely fantastic. And we have the great late Ray Liotta at the center of this whole story as Henry Hill. And this is one of my favorite performances from Liotta. It probably is my favorite performance from Ray Liotta. This is all based off of the true life of Henry Hill. And based off of a novel called Wiseguy that was released like 5 years prior to the movie adaptation here. And I think they were going to call it Wiseguy, but they ended up changing it to Goodfellas, which I think fits a lot better. I like that title more. And there are so many great actors in this film that round out the mob and all the Italian actors and stuff. A lot of them that you see in other mob movies or shows. A lot of these people were on The Sopranos. It's so authentic feeling. And I mean, I've never lived the life, but I grew up in New York my entire life in a half Italian, half Irish family. I was around and knew a lot of people like this. That's really all I'll elaborate on that, but this whole film is so authentic. It's so close to reality, to how this whole world was. I think this is just a masterpiece of a film, and a long one as well. So let's dive into Goodfellas from 1990 by Martin Scorsese. Before we jump into the movie here, I was debating whether I wanted to do and watch and talk about Goodfellas or Casino, because they're so close for me. Like, I know Casino doesn't get as much praise as Goodfellas, but I think it's right on the same level. I think that's another masterpiece film. And in some regards, I prefer that movie. I'll get into that if I do a video on Casino, which I'm feeling it sometime in the future, because I just rewatched it like maybe 2 weeks ago. And that's what made me debate doing that and rewatching it again now, because I could watch that movie anytime. Or Goodfellas. I said, let me go with Goodfellas because it's been a while since I watched this one and I just saw Casino. But both films, let me know in the comments which film you guys prefer, Casino or Goodfellas. I mean, my favorite Martin Scorsese film is After Hours from 1985, which is such an underrated Scorsese movie, and so many people haven't seen it, and it's a dark comedy, but that is the first and only video and review that I did on a Martin Scorsese movie until now. So if you like that film, go check that out. Into the movie. So I love how this movie starts with a jump into the future of the timeline of the story here, where we see them driving, Henry and Jimmy and Tommy, and they have Billy Batts in the back, the maid guy that Tommy, attacks brutally in the bar later, which the effects work in this movie is fantastic. Like all the stabbings and gunshots to the head, and like all the violence in this movie and in most Scorsese movies is top notch. We see them driving and it's 1970 and they stop because they hear the sound coming from the car, from the trunk, and they open it and he's still alive. And just, this may surprise people. Profanity doesn't really bother me much, but there is a ton in this movie. So there might be more than usual in this video because I'll be quoting it. So I don't know if that bothers you. What the hell are you doing on a horror channel in the first place? But yeah, effects, they look great through all of this. And Tommy just stabs the shit out of Billy Batts. Then we see Henry's face and we hear his narration. As far back as he can remember, ever since he was a kid, he wanted to be a gangster. Then the music, I mean, the soundtrack to this film is spectacular. And that's another thing that Scorsese's always been great at, is picking the perfect music for the scenes in his movies. And every song that's used in this film is used excellently. I couldn't think of another song to replace any of the songs in any of the scenes of this film. And I love the narration. Like, I love hearing the various characters giving their voiceovers during montages or, other specific scenes, just like in Casino. But that's one of those aspects, remember earlier that I was saying that I like Casino better for? The narration is one. Just the way that you hear De Niro and Pesci's narration back and forth in Casino, I think it's done better than the narration in this movie. But it's such a small little nitpick, and it's not even a nitpick because it's so close. But this movie does it excellently too. So we get to see Henry as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, and we see Paul Cicero, great actor. I forget his name. It's Sorvino. I can't think of his first name. It might be Paul Sorvino. I could be wrong. His performance is excellent, and just what a intimidating character, man. Like, what a great mob boss. I mean, say what you will about the mob, they were one of the best organized crime there was. I mean, they were the best. I mean, there were some brilliant mobsters in organized crime. You had Vinny the Chin, who used to walk around Greenwich Village. He was the head of the Genovese family. He used to walk around Greenwich Village as when he was older in a bathrobe and slippers and mumble to himself like he was losing his mind and stuff to try to prepare for an insanity or, a defense that he's not all mentally there. I mean, they used every tactic there was, and pretty brilliantly. But Henry starts working down at the cab stand, and he starts making money here and there, and it becomes a full-time hangout for him because he feels respected. He feels like he's treated like he's an adult, that he's a part of something, and that was the whole allure of the mob for him ever since he first met, these people and saw them in his neighborhood. Then we see the scene with his father, who gets furious and beats the shit out of him with his belt because he gets in the mail a letter from the school saying he hasn't been to school in months. The way I see it, everybody takes a beating sometimes. I love when they bring the mailman into the pizzeria. I think it's a pizzeria, right? Yeah, because they go to shove his head in the oven. They threaten him straight up and say, if another letter from that kid's school goes to that house, then we're throwing you in the oven. All of that is so funny. Then we get to really hear about and see just how brilliant Paulie is. How he has people handling his phone calls all day long. That's all they do for him, is handle his phone calls, because he won't talk on a phone, which of course. So he has people, get the phone calls from whoever's trying to reach Paulie. Then they go run to Paulie and tell the information to him. He gives his response, and then they go and make the phone call back from an outside line. And the fact that he has people doing that all day, every day for him is insane. And then how he doesn't like conferences. He doesn't even like having more than him and one other person there, because he doesn't want anyone to hear the information he's being told, and he doesn't want anyone else hearing what he's telling the person with whatever the problem is. Brilliant tactics here. Brilliant mob boss. And then I love Henry's whole explanation of what the mob actually was and why the FBI can never understand. That they're basically police for wise guys, that they offer protection for people who can't go to the cops. That's all it is. Like, all of that narration is so good. One day, some of the kids in the neighborhood helped carry my mother's groceries all the way home. You know why? It was out of respect. There's so many great quotes and lines in this film. Henry's like 13. He's making more money than most of the adults in the neighborhood. And the first time he sees somebody get shot, and the guy's like, begging for help. He's bleeding profusely in front of one of Paulie's, buildings. And he gives him like 8 aprons to try to help the guy. And one of the bosses there says to him, he's like, you wasted 8 aprons on that fucking guy. That's so funny. And then we see Henry meet Jimmy, the gent, for the first time. And gives us backstory on him. And just De Niro is one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he is one of the greatest actors to ever live. The guy's resume is just spectacular, and he has such range. He could play anything from serious roles to comedies to anything. I mean, I'll be so sad when he passes, honestly. But Jimmy started doing hits for mob bosses when he was 16 years old. This guy's deranged. He always roots for bad guys in the movies, and he loves stealing, like loves it. He takes pride in it, and some of the stuff he steals, shrimps and lobsters, like they controlled everything. Cigarettes, alcohol, like they controlled everything. They had every type of racket. Then we see Jimmy with the cigarettes, selling them out of the car. And he's selling them to the cops, and he's bribing them, and he's giving them payoffs every time. And then we see Henry doing the same thing, and he's selling cigarettes, and cops show up that aren't paid off, and he ends up getting arrested, and he pops his cherry. He does not say anything. He is not a rat, which he will later become a huge rat. And that's basically what his legacy was when he died. I mean, he died with this film, about his life in the book. He was a fucking rat in the end. And the guy that they got to play young Tommy, he is so good. I mean, that looks like a young Joe Pesci. Like, he imitates him brilliantly. And young Henry, I don't know the actor's name, but he does a very good job too. Like, there's not a bad performance in this entire film. Now we flash forward a few years, and we have Ray Liotta as Henry. We got Pesci as Tommy. We see them by the airport, and they've tried robbing this place several times. And they have family that work all over the place in all different places that can tip them off for various heists that they do. And I love this scene. The way that the camera moves around, like the restaurant that they're in, it makes it feel like they're breaking the fourth wall, because as the narration from Henry is introducing each character, like he goes through like the club introducing all the mob people, and they say like, "Hi, how's it going?"
Mikey Francesi.
That guy, yeah, I want to see him.
And Tommy 2 times, who says everything 2 times. I'm going to go get the papers. All of that is really well done. I love all the camera work, but it makes sense, even though it feels like they're breaking the fourth wall, because he's walking around the club, so they're talking to him. But the way it's done, man, I just love that. If anybody complained, believe me, they got hit so bad they never complained again. Probably the most famous scene in this movie. Joe Pesci shines like a diamond in the rough in this scene when he starts fucking with Henry, and he's telling his story. Everyone's laughing, and Henry says, "Oh, you're funny." And he starts messing with him, but he's so intense. He's so serious, and everything that he says is hysterical.
You're funny.
You mean,
So?
let me understand this, because maybe it's me, I'm a little fucked up, maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? I make you laugh? I'm here to fucking amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
You know how you tell a story. What?
No, I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the fuck am I funny? What the fuck is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny.
Every line of dialogue out of his mouth is just brilliant. And then how Henry realizes that he's fucking with him, and he says, "I almost had you, I almost had you." One of the greatest scenes in this movie. Nice foreshadowing, though, when Tommy says, "I don't know about you, Henry, you might fold under questioning." And he does end up ratting everybody out. So that's cool. And then we see him just smash the glass or whatever on the owner of the restaurant because he owes him $7,000. And the guy ends up going to Paulie and cuts Paulie in as a partner. But now he has to pay Paulie every month, otherwise he'll get killed. No matter what happens in business, if business is terrible, if God forbid something happened, he had to close the business down, he still has to come up with the money for Paulie. And then I love how at the end they say you just light the place up and you collect the insurance money, you just fucking burn it down. And then after a great scene between Tommy and Henry, where Tommy's asking him to go on a double date with him so he can try to bang this Jewish chick. And we get introduced to Karen, played by Lorraine Bracco, who starts her little narration on what she thinks of Henry on this first date, because he has business. He's got a meeting at 11. So he's in a hurry. He doesn't really even want to be there. So she takes that as he's a prick. I love Tommy's line. They're Jewish, the two girls, and he says to her about the wine, he says, "Yeah, it's good, right? It's Anisette." And then he says, "You'd probably do better with Manischewitz, but it'd look funny on my table." That's fucking hilarious. Which the whole dynamic between Liotta and Bracco in this, fantastic. I love their chemistry. Henry ends up standing Karen up for the second date and has Tommy take her to find him, and finds him, just hanging on the corner and stuff with the mobsters. And she looks sexy, as he says, when she's yelling at him, and then he's trying to say, "I'll make it up to you," and making her laugh, and they're flirting a bit. Like, they have such a great chemistry in this movie. And the way that she's just blown away at Henry's lifestyle, and how they get into the exclusive nightclub dinner with the comedy routine and stuff, like, she's just blown away by everything around her. Like, this is not her world. She's just some Jewish chick from wherever she's from in this. It's not Brooklyn. It's probably somewhere nearby. It doesn't matter. But I love the way that she portrays that. It's like she's in a dream almost at first, until things start going severely downhill. Maury, great character with his stupid wig and his commercial, but then when he says to Henry, and Jimmy's waiting there, like in the lobby for his money that Maury owes him, and he starts saying, "Fuck Jimmy," like, fuck him here, fuck him there. And Jimmy comes in and starts strangling him with the phone cord and starts threatening his life. Oh, that's great. Then this is where Karen fully figures out exactly what Henry is a part of here, when she gets harassed by her neighbor that she knew for her entire life pretty much. And he pushed her out of the car, right? Yeah, pushed her out of the car after, like, basically tried raping her. And then Henry drives her home, and she has no idea what he's about to do, but he goes up and starts bashing him in the nose repeatedly, like savagely, and then says, like, "If you ever touch her again, then I will kill you, you're dead," and points the gun at the other two. And then he goes and he gives the gun to Karen and says, "Hide this." Also love the way that she says that most of her friends, if their boyfriend handed a gun to them, that's when they would be out. And she says, "Nah, I gotta be honest, it turned me on." It's Lorraine Bracco. Like, I've always loved her, and her voice is so sexy. Their wedding scene is a good one, too, where she's meeting all of the mob, and everyone's named Paul or Petey, and they're all married, too, or have daughters named Marie, and that she felt drunk after meeting all of them. All of that's funny stuff. And when they're dancing, after they all get handed, it's a little something to get you started from everybody. Envelopes, who knows how much money they got here. And they're dancing, and she says, "Oh, what about the bag with the money?" Like somebody would steal that bag in this scenario around these people. It's like she's still so naive to the situation she's in, even though her eyes are a lot more open now, but she's still not fully there yet. And then we get to see how Karen starts rationalizing the whole lifestyle too, and how she gets sucked into it, and that it all just feels normal, and there's no outsiders around. It's always the same people together like a big family, and that makes it even feel more normal. So she gets sucked into the allure of the lifestyle too. And then we get the infamous Billy Bat scene, which all the dialogue from Pesci in this scene is just splendid. And Batch just got out of prison. He's a made guy. So they technically can't touch him. But he starts busting Tommy's balls about how he used to shine shoes back in the day. And Tommy, it's Tommy, so he flies off the deep end like for the smallest, tiniest things. So, yeah, he's a loose cannon, like Paulie says earlier.
Salud, Tommy.
No more shines, Billy.
What?
I said no more shines. Maybe you didn't hear about it. You've been away a long time. They didn't go up there and tell you. I don't shine shoes anymore.
Relax, will you, for crying out? What's got into you? I'm breaking your balls a little bit, that's all.
I'm sorry, too. It's okay. No problem.
Okay, salud. Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
Motherfucking mutt! You fucking piece of shit!
Yeah. Come on!
Tommy ends up leaving, but tells Henry, keep him here. And then later on, they end up coming back, and they end up beating the shit out of Billy Bats, which brings us back to the very beginning of the movie, after they had to stop while driving his body because he was still alive, and, Tommy stabs him a bunch. Oh, but before it gets to the part where they pull over, because they're on their way upstate to a place that Jimmy knows where they can dump the body, that no one will ever find it, even though they end up having to move it later on. And they stop at Tommy's mom's house, who's played by Martin Scorsese's mom, right? I'm pretty damn sure that's her. I love her character. She's adorable. How she wants Tommy to just settle down and meet a nice girl. And he says, I settle down with one almost every night, Ma. And then they start explaining the blood on the car, and they say that they hit a deer, and he starts explaining with the knife. You have to cut the hoof out of the grill of the car. All of that's so funny. And I love that painting that Tommy's mom made. And then Jimmy points out that the guy in the painting with the two dogs looks like someone they know without the beard. And then Tommy starts freaking out, saying, oh no, look, without the beard, it's him. And then you start hearing Billy Bats thudding on the trunk. I love Henry's narration when they're burying Billy Bats' body, because he's 100% right when he says that they got a bad situation here because Tommy killed a made guy, and he was part of the Gambino crime family. And before you can make a hit, on a made guy, you got to have a sit down and get it approved. And you better be damn sure that you're going to get an okay to kill that other guy. Otherwise, you're going to get killed just for bringing it up. So, I love that whole narration. Yeah, they have to move the body of Billy Bats because they're going to make condominiums there, and it's been 6 months. And hilarious the way that they're fucking with Henry. It shows how sick both Jimmy and especially Tommy are, that they're like, oh, here's a leg, and then Tommy comes out with, here's a wing, and then you have Henry puking his guts out on the side. She's like, oh, that's terrible, the smell and everything. That's a great scene. And then Karen and the kids come out the next morning, and he's trying to get the smell at that terrible stench out of that car, and he can't. He just says, I hit a skunk, get the kids out of here. And they say it's disgusting. Then we see the apartment, beautiful place, like every setting in this whole movie that Henry got for his girlfriend, Janice, and how he also starts flirting with her friend, that they end up snorting a whole bunch of cocaine together later. Then we have the great scene with Spider, Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos, who plays Christopher. And he's slow with getting Tommy's drink. And he pulls the gun out and he's drunk. He's saying, hey, I'm the Oklahoma kid or something like that. He starts shooting, telling him to dance the drink to him. And he shoots Spider in the foot. And it's really heartbreaking when Karen approaches Henry and says, I know something's going on. You haven't been home in 2 weeks. And he starts, fucking gaslighting her and saying you're crazy, and he throws the lamp, and you see one of the kids, the daughter, she's like 3-4 years old maybe, and she has to hear them arguing like this, and Karen screaming like, I hate you, get out of our lives, and all that. That's heart-wrenching. But then we go back to Spider, and he's got a cast on his foot, and he stands up for himself. And he tells Tommy to go fuck himself. And then he learns real fast that's a terrible idea, because Tommy just shoots his ass dead. And Jimmy gets pissed with him. He's like, I was just fucking with you. He's like, you're going to go dig the hole. All of that is great too. And what a tense scene. After, there's so many fucking names in this movie, characters. After Karen goes to his girlfriend Janice's apartment, and she's ringing all the doorbells and stuff and saying to the superintendent that you got a whore living in the apartment. That's hysterical. But when he wakes up, Henry, with a gun in his face, and Karen's holding the gun at him and starts asking, do you love her, and all that type of stuff, and he starts talking her down, and then his performance is astounding. When he rolls her over and he says, are you fucking crazy, Karen? And he goes off on her. Liotta's performance in this scene and one other scene a little later are my two favorite scenes of his in this film. And just keep in mind, this is all before the enormous amount of drug use that they participate in. So Paulie tells Henry to go down to Florida with Jimmy to take care of some business and rough this guy up, and they're about to feed him to the fucking lions. And then he calls his people, says, I'll get the money for you, and they end up getting pinched. And they end up doing 10 years is what they get sentenced to. All the stuff with them in jail and just showing how even though they're in jail, they still live like fucking kings. They have no rules, really. They're able to all hang out together. They get expensive ass wine. Paulie's doing a year for contempt, and all the stuff with the onions, how they liquefy in this. All of that is such great dialogue. All the prison sequences, actually, when Karen comes in and she's sneaking all the food in, and eventually the drugs, because he starts selling drugs in here to survive. And then when he gets released, that drug dealing and drug use continues, to Paulie's dismay, because he doesn't want anybody fucking with anything like that. So Henry gets paroled after 4 years, and he has his Pittsburgh connection for cocaine that he's making a lot of money on. And the scene when Paulie tells him that he better not be fucking around with drugs anymore, like, you did what you had to do in prison, but from this point on, and he says that like some other mob boss or whatever is going to die in prison at 70 years old because he just said hello to somebody who was selling junk behind his back. And he's so intimidating. He is so scary. Paulie is just such a great character. And then it just cuts to the next scene, and they're just cutting up just tons of cocaine. I mean, it takes a lot of balls to be Henry and going behind Paulie's back like that. So the crew ends up robbing JFK Airport, the Lufthansa heist, which was the biggest cash robbery in U.S. history. I think that's what it is. The largest cash robbery. And Christmas times, oh, they end up coming into the club. And I love De Niro. He looks at Henry. He's like, come here, come here. And I love how Jimmy told everybody on the crew of this heist to not spend any of the money. And he scolds two of them for buying just the most extravagant shit, a new car for one of the guys' wife and the fur coat. That's too funny, and it leads to them all getting whacked. They all get killed so that there's nobody left from the crew that can testify against Jimmy, except for Henry and Tommy, because he's making money with the cocaine business with Henry, so it doesn't make sense to whack them. But the whole kill montage and showing all the bodies being discovered, that's great. And we have the great Samuel L. Jackson in this, in a pretty early role in the grand scope of his career, as Stax, who was supposed to ditch the truck, and he ended up getting stoned, and Tommy has to come and shoot him in the head. That looks really cool, effects-wise.
It's 11:30. We're supposed to be here. You know, we're supposed to be there by 9.
Shit, I'll be ready.
Yeah, you're always fucking late. You're late for your own fucking funeral.
Then Henry finds out from Jimmy and Tommy that Tommy's going to be made. They're going to make him a made guy. And tragically, I mean, they're all despicable people. Like, all the characters in this. But it's not a real ceremony. It's the family that Billy Batts belonged to, the Gambinos, right? Getting back at Tommy for killing Billy Batts. Then Jimmy ends up having Maury killed. Tommy stabs him in the back of the head when they all get in the car. That's cool. Then, yeah, the whole montage where the kids find the bodies in the car, and then they start finding the bodies everywhere of all the crew. Set to Layla, the interlude from Derek and the Dominoes. That might be one of the best montages. That might be a favorite montage for me right there. And yeah, Tommy walks in and he realizes right before he dies, he says, oh no, there's nobody in the room. And he gets shot in the back of the head. And they did that so that his mom couldn't give him an open casket at his funeral. That's fucking harsh. That's brutal shit.
Oh, no.
And Jimmy's reaction and De Niro's performance and everything when he finds out on the phone, when they just say, he's gone and we couldn't do anything about it. And he starts breaking down. Great. Like, I love his performance, his whole little breakdown there. And then we just have the ending with the day of Henry's demise, where he's going around running errands and he's seeing helicopters all over town that are following him. And then he ends up getting busted with a bunch of cocaine. The breakdown that he has when Karen tells him that she flushed all the cocaine that was stashed in the house down the toilet when they did the raid, and like the way he breaks down and says like, that was all our money, Karen, why did you do that? That is the other scene that I was talking about earlier. That is his best performances in this movie. And same for Bracco too. Both of them in that scene, that is a tense moment when they realize that they got nothing. They got no money. They got no cocaine to get back on their feet. They are at complete rock bottom.
I had to Karen, they were gonna find it! Fuck, Karen, they would have never found it! I swear to you, Henry, I swear, Henry, they would have found it! Oh, no! Why did you do that? Why? They would have found it. Why did you do that, Karen? Oh my God. Oh my God.
And Karen's even afraid that Jimmy's gonna whack her, which I always wondered this. Like, there's been debate. Do you think that Jimmy was trying to kill Karen when he's trying to get her into the store and pick out clothes and stuff, and she ends up getting freaked out and driving back home to Henry? I don't know. I always go back and forth. I mean, knowing Jimmy at that point, I mean, he's become so greedy that he killed off everybody in the Lufthansa heist. So it's not far out of personality in his character to whack Henry, especially when he notices that he's getting all whacked out on drugs and stuff. So I think he might have intended to kill Karen, but the way it's filmed, it's great because it really shows the paranoia that Karen's feeling. And a lot of it from all the cocaine they've been doing, yeah. But just all the circumstances that they're dealing with right now. So do you think that he was trying to kill Karen and lure her in? Or it was just her paranoia? Let me know in the comments. And Paulie, he just gives him $3,200. That's it. And says, I turn my back on you. Which, sure, he was still going to probably whack him. Right? I mean, he got pinched for all this. He knows he's going away possibly for 25 years. He's not taking that chance. He wasn't even taking the chance of people dealing drugs around his back, Paulie. So why would he take the chance with letting him live? So I think he was going to whack him anyway. But he ends up becoming a rat. And Henry just works with the FBI. He gets relocated in the witness protection program, and from his own words, he lives a very boring life and just devoid of any of the high luxuries and everything that he loved and found alluring in the mob and the criminal world that he lived in. And that's it. I mean, it is a masterpiece of a film. And yeah, that got a little long, but it's a long fucking movie. All right, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Actually, I always feel like it's longer than that. Like 2 hours and 20 minutes doesn't feel right when I think about this movie. I feel like I think that this is closer to like 3 hours whenever I think of this film. But I mean, the pacing is excellent through it. So 2 hours and 20 minutes, it goes by pretty fast. So that's Martin Scorsese's GoodFellas from 1990. And hope everyone's having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.